So today we are taking a look at the Schecter Hellraiser Extreme 5. Obviously this is the 5-string version of this bass. There is a 4-string version as well. I haven't tried it, but they should be pretty similar with the exception of the scale length. I believe the 4-string has a 34-inch scale. This one has a 35-inch scale, and the string spacing, which we'll talk about later in this video. I've had this bass for a while now, I think over 2 years now, and I've played a few shows with it. I've done some videos with it. I've done some videos playing solo bass arrangements with it that you can see on this channel. And so in this video, we're gonna be talking about the things that I like about this bass, things that I don't like about it. We'll be hearing the bass in all its different configurations to see what it sounds like, what it can do, what it's capable of, whether it's a versatile bass or not, all that stuff. So let's first start off talking about the specs of this bass. It has a beautiful neck through design right there, which I really like. It's really nice. And for those of you that don't know what a neck through means, basically it means that the neck and the body are all one piece. The neck isn't bolted on. Most basses, the neck and the body are separate and the neck is bolted on with some screws in the back here. This one is a neck through, so it doesn't have that. And some people say they hear a difference in neck through versus a bolt on. Some people say one has a better sustain or better mid-range. I've never really heard much of a difference, but I do like the look of a neck through. I do appreciate the craftsmanship and look and how seamless that is. It just looks and feels really nice. But tone-wise, I've never really noticed much of a difference. So let's take a look at the knobs that we have here. So as you can see, there are 5 knobs here. We have a volume for the neck pickup, volume for the bridge pickup, and then a 3-band EQ, bass, mid, and treble, and these are boost and cut. And one thing that I don't like about these knobs right off the bat is that there's really no indication of volume-wise where you are in the knob. So if you turn it up like what is halfway, there's nothing really telling you where you are. So I usually use this either all the way up or all the way down. I don't really blend it too much. And the EQ does have a little click right in the middle. I don't know if you can really see that on camera. Let me try showing it here. So it clicks in when you get to the middle, and then you have the boost beyond that, and then obviously the cut, like I said, bass, mid, treble. And it has an 18-volt circuit, so there are 2 9-volt batteries in the back of it. And another feature that it has is these pickups, they can be used as humbuckers or single coil. These volume knobs right here for the bridge and the neck pickup, you can actually pull them. And if you pull them up, then it switches these pickups to single coil. And if you push them down, then you have the humbucker mode. And we'll be seeing what that sounds like in a minute. So let's get into some of the different sounds that this bass has. Obviously, it's a very versatile bass with the 3-band EQ, the single coil options, and all that stuff. So I'm going to turn both volumes up all the way, and I'm going to keep the EQ right in the middle so it's flat, nothing boosted, nothing cut, and let's see what that sounds like. And now let's boost the bass, see what that does. I'll boost it all the way so we can really hear it. And now let me cut it all the way. And now let's do the same thing with the mids. So all the way up. And I'm just playing something really simple, trying to hold long notes so you can really hear what it sounds like. Let's cut the mids all the way. And now let's do the same thing with the treble, all the way up. And all the way down. And now let's play around with soloing the pickup. So here's just the bridge pickup by itself. Turn off the neck pickup. And now let's do the same thing with just neck pickup. So I turn off the bridge, Turn on the neck. And now the last thing we're going to check out is that single coil option. So let's do both pickups and we'll pull this right here. And now they're both in single coil. Let's see what that sounds like. And now I'm going to solo the bridge. And I'm going to solo the neck pickup. The low B sounds fantastic on this thing. The sound of this bass in general, it just sounds massive. It sounds huge. Where the Stingray really cuts through the mix, is very punchy, very mid-rangey. This one just adds a lot of low end. Like, you imagine playing this bass with like two heavy distorted guitars, and then you add this and it just adds this massive low end to the mix. It's really, really big sounding. Which is awesome for rock, for metal, for all that kind of stuff. This bass does a great job on that. Okay, so now that we've covered all the specs on it, all the different configurations, obviously it's a very versatile bass. There are a lot of different kind of sounds that you can get out of this. Let's play around with different styles and see how this bass does. So if you want to play some slap on this bass, you can slap on it. It's not the best, and it's not the best for a few reasons, not even so much sound-wise, but more physically. The string spacing on this bass is pretty narrow. So if you're used to the standard like jazz bass, P bass, 19 millimeter spacing, this one is 17 millimeters. The strings are pretty close together. It has a pretty slim neck, strings close together, which can make it a little bit challenging for some of the slap stuff. That's one of the things that I really had to get used to with this bass, is the string spacing. I don't really use it for slap or for that kind of stuff that much. This bass is more, obviously it's known more as like a metal and rock bass, and most of the guys that play this bass play it with a pick, which it sounds great with, and this string spacing works fine for that. The other issue with playing slap on this is the distance between the string and the body right here. It's a pretty big distance. Like, I can fit my whole finger in there, and when I play like a Stingray or a jazz bass, for example, it's not like that. And so there's a lot more economy of motion, because the thing is, when you're slapping, you're putting your finger there. I kind of use the body of the bass as leverage, so I'm not having to travel that much. That's just a minor little thing, that, and it might just be a personal thing. Like I'm saying, all this stuff is like my personal experience, which may or may not apply to you. I'm just telling you my experience with this bass, what I liked about it and what I didn't. And that's one of the things, is the distance right here is pretty substantial, and the string spacing is pretty narrow. And another thing too, it has a 24 fret neck, so you're going to be slapping a lot further down on the neck, closer to the bridge, than you would on something that has, say, a 21 or a 20 fret neck. So that's another thing to take into consideration. You know, not the greatest bass for slap, but again, if you're looking for a bass for slap, this is not what you would buy. But anyway, let's just play around with it and see how it actually sounds. It actually sounds pretty good with all that being said. All right. All right, so that was actually pretty challenging to play, because like I said, that string spacing, it's hard to get your finger in there to really snap the strings. The thumbing is fine, and actually for double thumbing, the close string spacing is not bad, but it's for the snapping, it's hard, man. It's hard to get your finger in there because it's so narrow, and like I said, it's really deep over here too. The space is really deep. And on top of that, the action on this is really high right now. I try to adjust it before doing the video, but you have to get the screw out of this plate right here, and remove this plate in order to access the truss rod, and the screw is really small. I don't have a screwdriver that can fit into that, so I wasn't able to lower the action or adjust the space before doing this video. So I had to play pretty hard to get that slap sound there, and I'm sure I've made a few mistakes in there, and that's part of the reason why. It's because the action is so high and that tight string spacing. So yeah, I mean, it's not really a bass for slap, so I want to demonstrate everything in this video so you guys can see what it sounds like and just kind of know what you're in for with this bass and the tonal possibilities of it. But there are physical things about it that make it challenging for certain types of music. Okay, so moving on to something different, as you might have seen on this channel, I've done a few solo bass arrangements using this bass, and this might seem like an odd choice for that kind of stuff, but here's the reason why I actually really liked it for playing that stuff. One is the range on this bass. This bass has a 24 fret neck, so there is a huge range on this bass from the low B all the way to this high G right here. And that is amazing for solo bass arrangements because it gives you so much more range up here. Right, and that's a range that you wouldn't get with, say, a Fender jazz bass. They usually have 20 frets. Even the Stingray 5 has 22 frets, so I have 2 extra frets in this one. The one issue is that they're actually pretty hard to reach, especially if you're trying to play chords and stuff like that. So you might have to do the wrapping the thumb around the neck kind of trick so you can reach them, because like say I wanted to play this right here, you can do it, but it's a bit of a stretch. It's not very comfortable. And if I wanted to bring my index to this fret right here, see, that's a very awkward position. It's not comfortable. But if I bring my thumb around like this, then I can easily do stuff like that. So, you know, a little bit hard to reach, but again, it wasn't really intended for that kind of stuff. But it is nice to have that range. And the other reason why I used it for solo bass arrangements is because I use the DR neon strings, which are color strings on those videos, and the color strings against this ebony fretboard just looks incredible. It really pops. I mean, the bass is all black and you put those color strings on it, it looks amazing. So I really liked it for that. But that is another issue with this bass, which we might as well bring up right now, is the look of it. It is a very metal looking bass, rock, hard rock, metal. So that's another limitation. Even if it sounds good for a certain style, it still looks very metal. So you might not want to be using this on, say, a pop gig or something like that, because you will be judged on that. I mean, I love the look. I love these inlays. I think it looks awesome, but it is not for everything. Okay, with that being said, let's try some solo bass arrangement type stuff. I have both pickups wide open and the EQ flat, and let's do some stuff here. So as you can see, nice sounding chords and all that. Let's try it with the single coil option, see how that sounds. So there you have it, chords with the humbucker, with the single coil, and I'm keeping the EQ flat because that's how I have it most of the time with all that kind of stuff. All right, now let's try some pick stuff on this bass. So that is a pretty cool funky little pick sound right there. And now let's actually try something where this bass really shines, which is playing with a pick and a little bit of distortion. These humbuckers actually distort really well. I don't have a really cool distortion pedal on me right now, but I do have this Sans amp right here. So I'm gonna add a little bit of drive on that, keep this on the humbucker setting, and let's see how this does. So I'm gonna keep this flat right here. So this is just the dry sound. And this is with the drive. little B right there. Let's try that without the Sans amp. All right, now let's move on to a few other things real quick, because this video is starting to get way too long now. Let's take a look at some harmonics real quick. I'm gonna keep everything wide open, EQ flat. And some tapping stuff. All right, so hopefully that gives you an idea. I don't want this video to drag on too long. I just want to get a little bit of everything. I feel like we covered all of the specs on the bass, covered a bunch of different sounds, did a little bit of slapping, we played with a pick, we played some chord stuff, some harmonics, added some distortion and played with the pick. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what this bass sounds, what it's capable of. And again, just to go over everything that I like and don't like about it, because I know it's kind of scattered throughout the video. So the things that I don't like is the narrow string spacing. Makes it a little bit challenging for some stuff. It's just not a spacing that I'm used to, especially for slap kind of stuff. But for playing with a pick, if I'm playing rock stuff with a pick, it doesn't really bother me that much. Also, the location of the two volume knobs right here, when I'm playing live, it bothers me a little bit, because in between songs, or if there's a break between songs where the artist is talking and the band is silent, I always like to turn my volume down. This one is kind of in an awkward position because it's above the other three knobs and it's way to the right. So when I'm playing live, it's kind of difficult for me to have to reach over here. I accidentally bump into this one and turn this one as well, which I don't want to do. And I got to turn two knobs instead of one. And that's just kind of a little bit annoying. But again, that's just a personal thing that might not bother a lot of other people. That's just me personally. That's one of the reasons why I haven't used this bass live as much. And obviously the look of it, I love how it looks. I love the inlays. I love the ebony fretboard. And I just love everything about it, the body shape. But obviously it's not a look that's going to fit in with a lot of different styles. You know, I mean, if you're playing like a pop gig or something like that, you could use this bass, but it kind of looks a little bit out of place. Although I personally love the look, but it just doesn't fit every single scenario. It's not as versatile of a look as like a jazz bass or P bass. And I know, who cares about looks? All that matters is how it sounds, right? But the truth of the matter is, a lot of people listen with their eyes, and they'll make judgments and assumptions about you based on what you're playing or your look or whatever. So, you know, that does come into play. So it's not a bass that I can kind of use for every different situation because of how it looks. Although I love it, it looks great, especially on video with the color strings and all that. Like I said, I love that neck through design, but it is what it is. I'm just being completely open and honest with you guys about my experience with the bass. And I know to a lot of people that's not going to matter, and that's great. You know, if you like how it sounds and you like the look and everything, it's a great bass for you. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If there's anything I left out that you guys wanted to see, just let me know in a comment below, and maybe I can do a follow-up video covering that kind of stuff. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that right now, because I'm going to have a lot more reviews coming up. I have solo bass arrangements that I post on here. I post gig vlogs for you guys that are wondering what I do when I'm not making videos, when I'm traveling, when I'm playing. There's a bunch of those on the channel that you can check out. And with that being said, I will see you guys on the next video.